Sadie, I'm doing this. I'm reading. I'm reading from a book I wrote called The Book of Accidents. Oh my gosh. A big, scary, spooky, spoopy, coal mine, haunted house kind of book. So I'm reading right now from a chapter called Interlude, The Coal Mine at Ramble Rocks. Are we ready? Okay. The boy, 12 years old, ran through purple-top grass. He could not see very well, for he had been crying so hard that his nostrils hurt from being snotty, and wiping the snot on his sleeves again and again until his nose chafed and the skin went raw. His body felt sore, too, like it had been crunched up like an old soda can. This was not the first time he'd felt this way. It was, he also knew, not the last. It would go on and on like this forever, wouldn't it? Though why then did he run away? He ran and ran for what felt like miles, dozens, hundreds of miles, even though it was not so far as that. And running away felt like a grasp at freedom, like maybe there was a chance of keeping going. He told himself that he didn't have to turn around, didn't have to go back home again. But what about Mom, he thought. He can't leave her alone. Not with him. A new pain found him, a hard stitch in his side, a cramp that felt like someone was pulling on one of his rib bones with a pair of pliers. So the boy slowed to a walk and then eventually stopped. Ahead, a shape loomed. He'd seen it before, but never this close. The Ramble Rocks coal mine. The pale white logs framing the entrance were wrapped in poison ivy and creeper vine. The ivy had started to turn colors already in advance of autumn. The mine had long been shuttered. It was a dead place now, just a hole in the world. Behind the entrance, the trees were mostly dead, only a few meager leaves on bone-finger branches. The light of the late day coming through those trees seemed strange, weak and thin, like the glow of a lamp through an old, filthy bedsheet. The boy stood, chest rising and falling. He put a hand to his side to massage the cramp between his ribs. He blinked, and for a moment the entrance to the mine seemed to change. One blink, and it became a hungry, gaping mouth, a black maw with a train-track tongue emerging from it. A blink and it was back to what it was, the mine entrance with a big number 8 painted at the top and fading, cracking black. A small part of him thought, I can go in there, I can live there. A faint breeze stirred in his direction, moving against him as if coming from within the mine entrance, as if it were breathing, and that breath carried a whisper, Come to me. He gasped and forced the whisper from his mind, but it came again and again, come to me, then in the song, like a howl through broken window glass, come to me. The boy squeezed his whole body until it went away, but it did not go away, and it wouldn't, he realized. The boy knew he had to get away from this place. So he turned and ran the other direction, not quite toward home. He wasn't ready for that commitment, no, not yet, but away from the mine. And then something sprang up in front of him out of the falling thatch of purple-topped grass. A dark shape summoned by the stirring of the boy's feet, and it bolted into the air, flut, 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 and even as he pinballed the other direction, and ran even harder, he knew it was just a bird, a stupid, stupid bird. Some kind of pheasant, a dove, it didn't even matter. But he was scared, and so he ran harder, his string-bean legs carrying him forward hard and fast, until he took a step onto ground that was no longer solid. It was soft and wet. His legs sank in, and he pitched forward, crying out. His hands tried to catch his fall, but ahead the ground was soft too. Black ooze gleamed underneath a carpet of leaves and sticks. The black morass licked at his chin, and he realized just what this was. Coal silt, wet like quicksand. His heart trembled in his chest in anxious spasm. He tried to reach out and find solid ground, but the goop turned into a vice-like grip when he tried to pull out of it, and working to crawl out of it only seemed to sink him deeper in it. He said please no to himself and then screamed, but as he did, the silt mire glommed onto his lip, dripping across his mouth like a curtain of slugs, and it sputtered as he yelled into it. The boy then tried to spin himself around. Certainly he had come from solid ground, so he just had to find it again. But it was like screwing a screw deeper beneath it, and he only sank farther down. Now both legs were under the ooze, and then most of his arms. His elbows were there in the slurry, but his hands were still stretched out, though they could stretch no further. His fingers scrabbled fruitlessly against the muck even as the mire pulled him in. He began to cry, because this was how it would end for him, he realized, and a little part of him wondered if maybe that wasn't for the best. Maybe what he was running away from was worse. Maybe this was what he was running to. But then, as the silt bubbled up over his mouth, covering it, pressing against his nostrils and stifling his breath, panic swarmed through him, and he thought, no, 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 this isn't better. I don't want to die here. I don't want to die at all. And he couldn't breathe, and he knew that suffocating in this silt scum would be a terrible, terrible way to die. At least drowning in water would feel somehow cool, somehow peaceful, but this was holding him fast, like a tightening fist. He imagined suddenly he'd never see his mother again, that his father was the one pushing him down, holding him here, urging him beneath the morass. But this was just part of the cycle, or maybe one that would end right here and now. He disappeared underneath the surface. The silt drew the boy down into the true dark. Even under the bubbling black skin of silt, his stifled scream could still be heard, until, of course, it couldn't. That book. Happy birthday, Sadie, Mother Horror. You do wonderful things for all of us. Thank you so much. Bye.